Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode on the pod. I believe it's episode 11 now of
Yes,
season
it
1
is episode
of the
11.
Albion Angle podcast. And I'm going to start today's podcast with a shout out
Oi, oi.
to a mate of mine from school, big fan of the pod, Gillingham fan of all fans.
Oi, oi.
I think he's more of a Gillingham fan, Newcastle enthusiast. Harry Folkus. Big shout out to Harry Folkus. He enjoys the episodes, so thought I'd give him a shout out.
Nice one. So, Archie, where we
Yeah, but
start with
today,
this week? Obviously, we did pick up 3 points last weekend. We did. And 3 goals and a clean sheet. Shall we talk about it? Let's talk about the fact we kept the clean sheet.
I think it was an improvement all round. I think some might say that might have been, because of the opposition we were up against, and I think that did play part of a factor into it. But a few of those teams like Leeds and teams which have been recently promoted, we don't usually win against their home. I think the last time we beat one of them at home was Luton in 2023. So, it's been a long time coming since we beat a newly promoted team at home. But no, I think I don't want to say I've been harsh on the manager, but I think I've had reasons to be annoyed with him. But I think he did get the majority of things right on Saturday.
Yeah.
Diego Gomez with a good performance again. Lewis Dunk would have been my man of the match personally.
Yeah.
I just think it was a good performance all round, and it's quite good to not drop points to teams who will be in and around Leeds' sort of zone come match 38, where they could be in the bottom 3. I am tipping them to go down at the moment, along with West Ham and Wolves. They are my bottom 3 at the moment. So the Leeds team, which could very much be relegated at the end of the season, will definitely be down there. It's a good 3 points to pick up, which we don't usually tend to do at home.
Yeah. So I'm completely agreed with you on that. I think it is nice to finally pick up some points at home against an opposition who will be further down the table than we will be at the end of the season. I think it was a good all round performance, as you said as well. I think Hertzler did get a lot right, and I will hold my hands up and say he did get it right on Saturday in large parts.
Oh yeah, what I'm going to
But once again,
clarify is that there's been a lot, especially on Facebook, right? I don't want the team to lose, okay? I've had a lot of people flooding my Facebook comments for a post I made, and I said Fabian redeemed himself to the fans, and there's been a load of 55 plus people who are sat there going, what do you mean he redeemed himself? He never had to. And it's like, but he kind of did. Because, he did drop two very bad tactical performances before. And I don't think it's a bad thing to say. I mean, I'm just crediting the manager where it's due, because I will say that probably the game against Arsenal out of all games was one of the weirder games to turn on the manager. Who haven't conceded in 10 games now. But it feels like a lot of the Hertzler in people enjoy us losing so they can have these arguments. I just think I need to clarify. I don't like losing, and I don't want to lose. I just have opinions on the manager, and I'd say I'm more in the same boat as I was for pretty much the entire season. It's that the manager does get things right, but he does get a few things wrong. But those few things he gets wrong can be quite detrimental, and I wouldn't be massively fussed if he left tomorrow. You can see my opinion. Actually, here we go. I'm gonna get a plug in here. You can see my opinion if you cast your minds back to Friday last week in my article which I wrote for Dogma. You can have a read of that, because that kind of evaluates my opinion. Yeah, I've been quite harsh on the manager recently, especially after the last two games. I think I've been harsh with reason. But there we go, clarified it. I don't want to lose, and you shouldn't want to lose either.
No, I do not want to lose, and I've received the same sort of comments for things that I've been saying about the manager, and it does seem that a lot of like the really heavy Hertzlerinners do actually enjoy us losing. Uh, so they have these conversations, so they have people to debate these views against. However, I am stubborn, and even when we win, I still say the same things. I think, yeah, he got a lot of Saturday right, but I do think it was as much Leeds being poor as us being half decent. I think genuinely they are the worst side to come to the Amex since God knows when. I think it's genuinely one of the worst team performances at the Amex for a long time. I think it was terrible. I think even Leeds fans will tell you that. It is a ground they
But they can't tell you that because they
traditionally
all
struggle
left.
at. Yeah, I mean the ones that stayed, they were voicing their opinions on their performance. But yeah, I'm quite
We only
stubborn
had about
personally. I
800 by the
obviously
end.
share I share the same view of that. Yeah, we've won a game and that is great, and I love winning. I do, and I was very happy with the 3 points on Saturday. But my views on the manager still stay that he needs to put together a decent run of performances and results for me to have any chance of changing my
Yeah,
mind.
that's my
So
problem.
obviously, I still
Every
think
win
that.
we've had, every win we've had this year, there's been a gap of 2 games, and those 2 games have been draw
Mm,
loss. Other than the Chelsea and Newcastle, but that had an international break in between and a draw. Every gap has been loss, draw, loss. So you kind of need to think, if you can't win 2 games in a row, then that limits us in the Premier League to 12 wins. I think 12 to 14 wins.
mm,
And in the
yeah,
current days of modern football, that's going to get you about 50-ish points. If you factor in draws as well, let's say you get 8 or so draws during a season, you're going to get 50 points, and that's not been enough for Europe in a lot of cases. Because 50 points feels like a lot, but realistically, that's only going to get you 10th. I say only, but
I mean, in recent years, actually, 50 points. Teams as low as 13th have finished with 50 points in the last 2 or 3 years because of how congested the top half of the table is. So
yeah,
realistically, if we want to stick to Tony Bloom and Paul Barber and the club's, you know, view and sort of ideology of where they want to finish, which is consistently top 10 and pushing for Europe, 50 points, in my opinion, doesn't cut it. Um, so obviously, we do need to start stringing results together. We've said that all season long. Um, and what better a place to do that than at Selhurst Park on Sunday,
um,
Archie? Yeah,
yeah. Well, I think a lot of people have been quite harsh on us going into this game.
me
I still
included.
think, Palace might have won the FA Cup, although I still think we're the better team. I still think we're so much better than them. If you look at the table at the moment, look at the points, over like underachieving Brighton, terrible. Some fans, completely split on the manager. 15 points in 10th. Palace in ninth on 16 points. Oh, this is the best Palace team of all time. They're really, really doing
Mm,
well. Ollie Glasner's clearly got something doing well. There's just different standards, and they might have won the FA Cup, but if you're looking at it, it's not. obviously it is a good achievement. I'm not gonna say that it isn't, but if you look at the teams and the runs they had in the FA Cup, though, if you look at our run in the FA Cup, we had a harder
Mm.
run than Crystal Palace, 100%. I think we played three Premier League teams, all of which were in the top half at the time, and we were just,
All of which qualified for Europe.
yeah, we would have qualified for Europe, you know, and they got kicked out of the
And
Europa League, so
all the teams we played in the Premier League qualified for Europe last year as well. Forest, Newcastle, and
yeah,
Chelsea. That they were all teams that qualified for Europe and finished above us in the table last year. So obviously, I do think our FA Cup run was a lot more difficult than theirs. But you can only beat what's in front of you. And having said which, they did beat Aston Villa in the semi-finals and beat Manchester City in the final. So obviously, those were two difficult games, and you do have to sort of hold your hands up and say, fair enough, they beat them. But I do agree with you in terms of how everyone is going on about how much we're underachieving, uh, and we're only 1 point off this Crystal Palace Golden
the
Generation super
standards are
team.
different. The
So
standards are
the
different.
standards are just different. We expect more of our players than they do, and that's why they're also buzzing, and we're also nervous going into the game. I am expecting it to be a very tight and cagey game, though, and I do think that I will be very, very, very happy with a point if the performance
Yeah, well,
is
I think,
consistent. I would take a point.
well, yeah, I would take a point, but I think they are again. They could be there for the taking. Like they're going into an
Mm.
international break where they'll have to watch out for injuries because I think a lot of their players play for international teams like in AFCON and stuff. So I suppose they'll be the African sides will be looking to get their squads together for AFCON, and so they're going into a. I think there is AFCON this year, isn't there?
Yeah, it is. It's this sort of December, January
Yeah,
time.
yeah. So they'll be trying to get ready for AFCON while putting. They've got a ridiculous run of games after, like, going into
Mm.
Christmas, which is a busy time of the year anyway. But they've got a um, stupid amount of games to play, and whether they want to go into an international break just knackering their players when they can. I think they've got to play Strasbourg away, which is probably the hardest game they'll have in the Europa League. They've got no, not Europa League, Conference League. They've got their
Conference League, yeah.
probably got their second hardest game in the Conference League against Alkmaar tomorrow. So it'll be
Yeah,
interesting to see how they do in that because obviously they dropped very poorly, dropped points to Larnaca.
Larnaca. It was
Larnaca,
a few weeks back.
yeah,
Yeah,
poorly
AK
dropped
Larnaca.
points there. So whether they will go into that Alkmaar game going, we need to give it our all, and because Alkmaar are a good team. I think they played West Ham in the semi-finals when West Ham were on their run. Um, so
Yeah, and they were. I think they got to the quarterfinals of the Europa League last
yeah,
year and were
so they're
knocked out by
clearly a good
Spurs.
good
So
European,
they are a
yeah,
good
clearly good
team in
European
Europe.
team.
Yeah,
I just think that as much as the I think it's difficult for players and managers to judge this game, and they probably judged it right last year. But you do watch some of these Brighton Palace games, and it is quite difficult for the manager to relay it onto some of the players. Like for example, Carlos Belieber. He's not going to understand that this is a rivalry. Like
mm.
he's probably sat on the bus going like, it wasn't this toxic at Fulham, and this is like the same distance. So I
Yeah,
do just think it's a matter of who can do better at getting up for the game because I think a lot of the players won't understand it, and I think I think that is quite understandable. It's quite a difficult rivalry to get your head around.
yeah.
Um, an underrated one at that, but it is like if I was a Senegalese player or a player from Cameroon, I wouldn't really understand why these two teams dislike each other so much. So I think
I
it
mean,
will
well,
be
Joe
just a
Murray
case
actually
of
said that as well. that he said when he left Brighton to go to Crystal Palace, he didn't realise that it was a rivalry until Palace played Brighton that season, because obviously we hadn't played them for a while, and we hadn't played them while Murray played for us.
Yeah,
So he probably just wouldn't have sort of known. Uh, so I do agree with you. I think it is important to pick the sort of players who have played in this game before and know exactly what it
yeah. I think it's
means.
it's just going to be a matter of who's up for it on the day, and hopefully it's us because apparently Hertzler went to it through Pascal Gross. When
But
Danny Welbeck
Hertzler did not show that last year,
score.
did
Well,
he?
yeah,
Um,
I think if you look at how these games play out, it's normally the team which is normally the underperforming, not doing what they could, who tends to win these games. And so at the moment, that's us.
yeah,
And it's normally a season defining game. I
yeah,
can't think of many instances other than in the Premier League anyway, other than the 2-1 win for us, which we then went on to finish 17th. It's normally a turning point in a lot of these team seasons. So it's a big game. And I think it will just be a matter of who's up for it on the day.
yeah, yeah. I completely agree with you. Obviously, we've shown many, many times since Hertzler's been in charge that we struggle to get up for big games, which is a little bit of a worry heading into obviously what is now off the back of the Leeds game our biggest game of the season. And if we do come away with a very positive result, which it is an if, then it could be the turning point of our season. I'm looking forward to Sunday. Strangely, even though I'm not particularly confident, it's just one of those games where I think the questions of the if we do this, if we come away with a win, it it does get you up for these games, and especially with how important the 3 points would be, it sort of got me just really really up for it. I do think players like Welbeck, players like Dunk, players like Van Hecker. If Milner's fit, we don't know yet. If Milner's fit, I think he's got to feature. It's going to be those kind of players that are going to be key to this game. It's a shame that Joel Veltman probably won't be fit
Yeah, but
because it's
even like if they can't play, it's
100%
like
the game for him.
the ones in the dressing room, like no doubt Solly March will probably try his best to be at that game. He was at the Leeds game on the on Saturday, so no doubt
Yeah,
he'll be there trying to make it apparent to some of the least less understanding players that this is a this is like for Costellas, this is like the Olympiacos versus Ike Athens. It's just you don't have coins and objects flying everywhere.
yeah,
But
yeah. I
sometimes you
think
do.
obviously, yeah, you do a lot of the time actually. To be fair, but it is once again going to be down to who gets up for it. And to be fair, with the sort of squad we have, like you wouldn't put it past players like Ayari who've had a couple of poor performances but have been one of our best players all year. You wouldn't put it past someone like Ayari going, this game is the perfect game for me to, you know what I mean? So I can see Ayari having a very good
He
day
always got to
Sunday,
drop a good
especially with the
performance
type
because
of
then
player that
after
he
this he's going to
is.
spend 2 weeks with Graham Potter. So Ayari's got to be
Yeah,
on his A
which
game
is
before Graham Potter
unfortunate.
ruins him.
Yeah, yeah. So in terms of like predicting the game, though, it is a difficult one to call, which is why I'm
Yeah,
obviously going to go with a point, and I'd be quite happy with a
I'm going
point.
to go. Yeah, I'm going.
Obviously,
I'm going to go. I'm going to go safe in the knowledge with a 1-1 draw.
yeah,
It
yeah, and
seems to
and if you
be.
look at the sort of recent
Yeah,
games
it seems
between
to be
us
the
two,
recurring. the recurring theme at Selhurst Park, a 1-1 draw is what I'm going to go for.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be too displeased with that. And if we do draw, providing that the performance and the mentality and it's all there, I think it would be a step in the right direction for Hertzler in terms of redeeming himself. I think fully. But obviously, it is one of them games where you can never call, you can never predict it. Form completely does go out the window in these games, as is the famous saying whenever there's a sort of rivalry game going on. But I do want to hear what you would think. The potential of a draw or win would do for your sort of stance on Hertzler.
I think it is pretty much going to stay the same in that I won't really care if he leaves. Because I feel like one of the things he's really not done, which he did at St. Pauli, but something he hasn't done here, and I think that's massively cost him, is that he's never really tried to make a connection with the fans. I think this whole putting the players first thing it doesn't really work in management. If you look at some of the best teams in the world, like some of the best managers, they're always putting themselves in the spotlight to like get pressure off of their players. Like Pep does it quite well. Mourinho does it. Klopp did it at Liverpool. They always made sure that they were in the spotlight, so the players didn't suffer from a lot of pressure. And I mean, it clearly works. They're all title winning, Champions League winning managers. Um, I I just don't really like that sort of, it's for the players to learn, because obviously it is kind of for the players to learn, but sometimes the manager's gotta take the brunt of some of these situations, because it can't always, because if he does it so much, then he's going to be sat waiting for the players to come into the changing room, and he's going to be like, oh well, what did the fans think? And it's like, well, you should be there to know what they think, instead of handing it over to some players which, let's be honest, in quite a young squad, might not know how to explain or handle those fan emotions. So I think I do sit in the bracket of I'm I'd probably lean more, if I had to give a in or out. I wouldn't, but I'd probably lean more towards the outside at the moment. But I think my viewpoint is, I don't really care if he's here. I don't really care if he's not here. Uh, he's just kind of doing all right, and whether that means I'll be angry once in every 3 games, then I don't know.
Yeah, no, that is completely fair and understandable, and I do agree with you. I think what De Zerbi did so well is that he come straight in and made an instant connection with the fans. He was the sort of the the mouthpiece for the fans' opinions. I think in terms of speaking to the squad and speaking to the media and how he acted at games
One
and
thing
how
I
he
will
acted
give to
in
Hertzer
interviews
though,
and how he acted in training.
yeah, one thing I will give to Hertzer though is that the fans didn't really try and have a connection with him. I mean, I know that
Yeah,
I know that
yeah,
Dogma did have an interview with him in like one of the first fanzines since he became manager. But other than that, he really hasn't. We haven't really, and he hasn't really tried to make a connection. So I think the connection is a key factor in a managerial job.
yeah. I do agree with you, and obviously it was going to be a very difficult job for Hertzler. We've said it many times before, coming straight in after somebody like De Zerbi. But the sort of analogy I have to give it is like it is sort of a little bit like a not a toxic relationship, but a relationship with communication issues where they're sort of no one's really making effort either side, and obviously if you've got two parties not making any effort, it's never going to work. Which is my view on it. Whether it is too late to turn around and change that now is a different question. It may not be too late, and he may be able to build that connection with the fan base uh, now even. I think obviously what a lot of the fans are saying is that after games, regardless of the score, like big wins at Chelsea, he straight away disappeared down the tunnel. And it was like sort of noticeable wins. He often doesn't want to come out and celebrate with the fans. It was only at Southampton really last year when he was made to come over by Jorginho that he sort of did it. I don't really know what your stance is on that. Whether you're someone who likes the manager coming over after games, or whether you don't really care if he just fucks off down
Yeah,
the
I
tunnel.
like if manager comes over after the games. I just think it's a really good way of taking pressure off the players. I think it works. So I prefer the manager to come over than not come over, and because I don't think it's right that the players take some of the brunt of the brunt of the abuse. Like after that Forest game, I think the players rightly did get some stick, but I think the manager should have been over there. I think Joel Veltman took most of the what the manager should have done. Joel Veltman did step up and be a leader when the players faced the fans after Nottingham Forest. I don't think I'll ever forget Joel Veltman kind of doing Hertzler's job. And yeah,
Yeah, and
I
he
think
did the
I
same
think
at
he should
Brentford as
make the
well.
effort to come over
Um,
for every game. It's the little
yeah,
things.
I completely agree. Yeah, I do completely agree. I think that is the thing once again that we're going back to De Zerbi, and even before that, Potter did it quite well actually with Brighton. Was that
I don't
regardless of the
see
result,
this. The
win or
thing,
loss,
the thing
he
is,
was
I
he
don't
was
like
over
going
there.
back to old managers. I don't. I don't like going back to old managers and going like, oh, they did this. Why can't they do that? But the problem is that it's too difficult not to do it sometimes. Like, there's a lot of things Church has done where it's been
Mm,
really difficult not to go, well, Deservey did this. Or like, well, like even like
mm,
some stuff Chris Hughton did. Like, it's hard not to go, well, this manager did it. Like, why aren't you? But I don't like doing the referencing old managers a lot. But I do think one of the things De Zerbi did very well was taking pressure off the players.
yeah, and that is what a lot of people are saying. Fab doesn't do enough. Is there any sort of final things that you want to sort of touch on
Right,
at the end of this
I'm gonna
episode
do
tonight, Archie?
Archie's corner is gonna be today an
Oi, oi.
explanation of the Brighton Crystal Palace rivalry because I know a lot of people get very confused with the geography aspect of Brighton Crystal Palace and how it kind of just popped up out of nowhere. So I'm going to give a few an explanation for the rivalry, and I'm going to reference a few other derbies and rivalries which some fans might not take well, but it does just put in perspective the distance of these teams and their rivalry. So it was 1976, I want to say, and it was back in the
Yeah.
day where you just had replay after replay after replay in the FA Cup until someone won. So I think we had one at the Goldstone, one at Selhurst Park, and it was the third replay, which was played at neutral ground, Stamford Bridge. Um, and so by the sounds of it, we played quite well in the game, according to Alan Mullery, and who was the manager of Brighton at the time. He had a bit of a rivalry with Terry Venables, who was Palace manager. They were in sort of the 60s in the same Tottenham team, fighting to be captain. And I think Alan Mullery got the captaincy over Terry Venables, and so they weren't the best of friends at Tottenham. But they just got on as teammates, competitive teammates. But that competitiveness relayed to them as managers. They were two very competitive managers, and they were very competitive when Brighton and Crystal Palace played. In
Mm.
this FA Cup replay, I think it was Palace who got the penalty. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, Palace got the penalty. Apparently, it was quite soft. and the referee
Mm.
was a guy called Ron Chalice, who on a YouTube video I heard used to always be called Chalice of the Palace. Because apparently he's very lenient towards Crystal Palace in the 70s when he was refereeing. Anyway, he's given this penalty. Palace have missed it, but it's been ordered to be retaken because apparently a Brighton player encroached into the box, but that wasn't the case. He was pushed into the box by a Crystal Palace player. Anyway, they've
Yeah.
retaken the penalty. Palace have scored the penalty, and Palace have won 1-0. And Brighton are knocked out of the FA Cup, I think, at the second round stage. That left
Yeah.
Alan Mullery very unhappy, storming towards the referee. There's a few iconic photos of him, like, fingers up. And he's going down the tunnel, and there's a Crystal Palace fan there, and he pours hot coffee over Alan Mullery's head, and so he reaches into his pocket, brings out some change, throws it down on the floor, and screams, "That's all you're worth," or something like "You're not worth that," or something along those lines. And
Yeah,
from
that's all
there,
your worth, Palace, I think is the quote.
yeah, and from there, Brighton versus Crystal Palace was born. Now, in the meetings then following it, I think we've got the better overall record, just about, or it's quite level. I do remember in the
It is
sort
quite
of
even, to be fair.
in the first decade of the 2000s, Crystal Palace were understandably very dominant over us. Um, and then it's kind of become an even, like, a level playing field ever since we've got into the Premier League. Um, can't think of many other facts. So that's how Brighton Crystal Palace sort of started. A fact I will give you, and I believe this is true: the East Anglian derby of Norwich and Ipswich, which no one really disputes. I believe Norwich to Ipswich is a longer distance than Croydon to Brighton.
Yes, in terms of distance, yes, but it's a shorter drive, yeah.
Yeah, so in terms of mileage,
Mm.
Norwich and Ipswich are further away than Brighton and Palace. The geographical location is a weird one because they're technically Brighton and Croydon are close, you know.
Yeah, yeah. It is only 41 miles from the Amex Stadium to Selhurst Park, and from Portman Road to Carrow Road, it is 46, I believe. Do check me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that we are
Yeah,
5 miles closer to Crystal Palace than Ipswich are to Norwich.
yeah.
So yeah,
Oh, I'll give a Seagulls and Eagles fact. So we used to be called the Dolphins. Crystal Palace used to be called the Glazers, and for some reason, they changed their name to the Eagles, and I really don't know why. Because the Glazers actually had something to do with Crystal Palace, because obviously it was a Crystal Palace. It was made out of glass. Glazers make glass. And they changed to Eagles for some reason, which I don't know. I'd like to find out why they did. Anyway, they were singing Eagles. This was like 1973, so before this famous FA Cup game, they were singing Eagles, Eagles, and Brighton started singing Seagulls as a joking remark to Eagles. And then I think the club basically realised that we haven't really seen any dolphins in Sussex, but we have
mm,
seen a lot of seagulls. So logically, we called ourselves the Seagulls because that, relates to our town. And Crystal Palace fans seem to think that
yeah,
it was because we're copying Eagles. And it's like, well, if we're copying Eagles, we would have just called ourselves Eagles.
yeah,
We've not copied. It's like it's seagulls, not eagles. So we picked a different bird which is relevant to us, and you've picked a bird which has got absolutely no relation to Croydon, or
yeah.
England
That
at
we
all.
know of.
England in all, in
Yeah,
fact.
yeah,
Um, So
The
there's a
Eagles a
bit.
very American thing, isn't it? It is very American. Um,
Yeah.
so it could
Can't
be due to
think
the fact
of.
they've had American investment since the late '60s. It could be the
Can't
Eagle could be
think
due to that,
of.
but we don't
Can't
know.
think of any more Brighton Palace facts. I'll give a Palace fact that in 2014, they were playing Middlesbrough, and they thought they vandalised the Middlesbrough team bus by writing Crystal Palace on it. Turns out it was their own bus, and they caused the club £40,000 worth of damage to pay. They also got fined by the FA
Yeah.
today for their flag about
Yes, they did for
Marinakis.
the Marinakis tifo.
To be fair, it was quite
I've
funny.
heard they've got a. I've heard they've got a wonderful bit of bed sheet planned for us on Sunday. So we'll
Oh,
see what that
I
ends up
don't.
looking like. But
Yeah.
I've heard
To be
it's
fair, the Marinakis one was quite funny.
yeah,
I can see why they got
yeah. But
fined.
you
I
can
can see
also
why they
see
got
why
fined for it, but they had
good.
comedic intention behind it. They're an odd lot. That HF.
Yeah, the homeless Tangfastics or whatever they're called.
Yeah,
They
can't.
all stand in tunnels and wave their lighters. Yeah, which I guarantee they will be doing on Sunday, as per usual, because obviously they've said multiple times that they hate us more than Mill and they hate Charlton. They hate us more than Mill and Charlton. So obviously, as much as a lot of Palace fans want to deny, they want to make it seem like a one-way thing, but realistically, we are always in their minds, and we will definitely be in their minds between sort of Friday morning and Sunday.
Oh,
Even they'll
I
probably
can
be
think of
thinking
a.
about
I've
us
got a
during
good
the
fact
outdoor
actually.
meeting.
I've got a good fact.
Oi,
Most
oi.
Crystal Palace fans actually live in Sussex because they live in Croydon, realise that it's really not a nice place, and then they move down here. And they all live in. They're all like South London and proud until it comes to actually living there. So none of
Yeah,
them actually live there. Like the ones who actually live in South London are all Millwall and Charlton fans. All the Palace
or
fans.
Arsenal.
All the Palace
There's a
fans live
very
in
big
like
Arsenal following.
they all live in like Red Hill and like Oxted and
Gatwick and Crawley
not even
and
that like bloody
there.
Tonbridge and Tunbridge Wells. They all live
Yeah, and they do have quite a big following in Crawley as well.
Yeah, they all live down there.
Because
They none of them
yeah,
live in South London. I think probably some of them live in Purley, and like that's about it. And Purley's like
mm.
arguably, I don't think it's on the London 1 to 6 travel zone, so it can't be London.
No,
Can't be
it's
London if you're
outside
not
it. Yeah,
on the London 1 to 6 travel zone card.
yeah. You know,
So
Reading is
yeah,
technically in Zone 6. Watford is in Zone 5. Purley's not in even 6. So, you know,
yeah, right, yeah,
says about that what needs to be said.
yeah.
But we
Strange
will
club.
thank you all for listening and watching this week. It is international break next week, so the post Palace reaction and sort and the pre Brentford sort of preview will come probably during the international break. So keep your eyes peeled on my socials and potentially Archie's socials
Yeah,
for
I'm not very good. I'm not very good at doing that.
when that episode is coming out. But thank you very much for making it this far, and we shall see you whenever that is, with hopefully an extra point or three
Yeah,
on the board.
seagulls, shit on eagles. That's how I end this
Yes,
podcast.
nice one. Anyways, thank you very much, but we will see you soon.
Oh. Oh my god.